I took 25 milligrams of Oxandrolone daily for 32 days, and today we're going to take a look at exactly what happened. First and foremost, this is not medical advice. This should not be used to treat or diagnose medical conditions. This is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I'm going to split this video up into 4 parts. Part 1 is going to be what I actually did in addition to Oxandrolone. Part 2 is going to be a look at my before and after physique. Part 3 is going to be a deep dive into the blood work. That's really what you came here to see. And then part 4 is going to be what I would have done differently if I had to run this experiment again for 32 days of 25 milligrams of Oxandrolone. Let's get into this. So first and foremost, I took 25 milligrams of oral Oxandrolone every single day. So I didn't do it in a trochee or a troche. I literally took the pill, swallowed it, so it had to go through first pass metabolism of my liver. I kept my testosterone the exact same. I take 160 milligrams of testosterone every single week, split up into 2 doses, so 0.4 mLs twice a week. I did not change my diet, so I track my food every single day on MyFitnessPal. Nothing changed with my diet in terms of protein intake and total caloric intake. So it's an isocaloric diet. I was at maintenance calories. So when you look at my physique, understand that I was not intentionally cutting over these 32 days. I also introduced some supplements that I thought would be beneficial. So I took 250 milligrams of TUDCA twice a day, so 500 milligrams total, and 600 milligrams of N-acetylcysteine twice a day, so 1200 milligrams total. I also dropped creatine because when I looked at my blood work before, my creatinine was a little bit high, and I wanted to see if dropping that creatine would basically alleviate that. So understand that the main difference in this entire 32 days was the introduction of some, hopefully, supplements that would help my liver health, and then the Oxandrolone. Other than that, pretty much it. So now let's get into how my physique actually changed. All right, looking at my before physique, decent. You know, I lift weights 5-6 days a week. I do my cardio pretty much every single day. I'd put my body fat here around, let's say 13-14%. So you can definitely see the top 4 abs. I got some muscle separation, but nothing to write home about in terms of leanness. Normally at this stage, at this time of year, I'd be starting my cut. I like to stay in the summertime around, let's say, 10 to 11% body fat, a little bit elevated here. I want to show you, before I get into the after physique, and we'll do a side-by-side, the pump. Okay, we're going to get into this in the qualitative analysis on how Oxandrolone changed my gym performance. But dude, when you would lift weights, you were like Mega Man. Like my shoulders are way more capped. My chest is way more like round and full. I mean, just the pumps would be insane. And you can kind of see that in that photo here. And this was, I think, 2 weeks in. You really honestly feel it right away, but this is after 2 weeks of being on 25 milligrams of Oxandrolone. Now we're gonna look at the after video. So you can see, I definitely am a little bit leaner, and this is on an isocaloric diet, so nothing changed. Definitely starting to see some separation in my obliques, definitely look leaner through my abs. I may have lost 1%, maybe 1.5% body fat, not changing my diet, not changing my training. So in terms of body weight, my body weight changed about 2 pounds. So I was 2 pounds lighter, but I'm gonna chalk that up more to stopping the creatine than I am to the Oxandrolone burning, or basically losing weight. I do think that there was a body recomposition. We're gonna get into why I think that's the case, but you can see not a dramatic change, but again, this is on an isocaloric diet. Nothing changed besides the Oxandrolone and dropping the creatine. So I do think that it actually did change my physique. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Now let's actually dig into the meat and potatoes of this. What did Oxandrolone do to my blood work? Because this I was kind of surprised by. Let's dig in to the blood work. Okay, so on the far right, you can see that's from 9/26/2024. That's when I first started testosterone. Well, a little bit into my testosterone replacement therapy. And I was taking 200 milligrams per week then. I did not like what some of the things that were happening, so I dropped it down to 160. We'll get into that deep into this. But looking at my lipids specifically, okay. So I want to compare before Oxandrolone, that's on 4/29, to after Oxandrolone, which was roughly 32 days later. So what was that? This was collected on 5/31. So yeah, literally like the day after I stopped. So you can see my total cholesterol went down. Why did it go down? Well, it went down because my HDL, which is, I know this is a little myopic, the good cholesterol, was nearly cut in half. So it dropped by 30 points. Guys, this is not good. This is no good. You want your HDL nice and high, and really, it's all about the ratio of cholesterol to HDL. Now, I get it. There is something to be said about having elevated LDL, especially extremely elevated LDL, which I have dealt with in the past. But my LDL changed just slightly. I mean, it went up by 5 points, but I'm most concerned with the fact that my HDL was cut by 30 points, my triglycerides went up by 11 points, and my cholesterol to HDL ratio is actually now in the moderate relative risk category at 4.1. And you can see before, yes, my LDL was slightly elevated, but the ratio was actually quite good at 2.8. This I don't like. I do not like to see this, and if you're somebody on Oxandrolone, you should absolutely be getting your blood work checked, because my HDL has always been solid, even though I've been battling with high LDL since I was 17. I mean, my total cholesterol has been up over 300, and I had to have some serious dietary intervention in order to change that. And again, that's something that, it sucks, but it's something I got to battle with pretty much forever. Now let's look at the CMP. Not a lot of changes here. Sodium's just slightly outside of the reference range, but it dropped by 4. Not anything to write home about. Creatinine actually did go down. I chalk that up with taking less creatine. My eGFR actually went up a little bit, so that's kind of cool. There's a lot that can go into that. Maybe I was maybe a little more hydrated, maybe something else changed, but not a huge amount of change in my CMP. This is what people also need to look at. It's my ALT and AST. So when you take an oral anabolic agent, what's going to happen is it's going to pass through the portal vein, it's going to go through your liver through first pass metabolism. And when you're taking something like Oxandrolone, it could potentially damage it. Now you can see it did go up slightly. So ALT went from 32 to 43, AST went from 32 to 38. So it did elevate, but only slightly. And I'm going to chalk that up with the intervention, the supplemental intervention that I did with a NAC and the TUDCA. So it did go up, but still within the reference range. Let's look at the estradiol. So estradiol is high at 65, and you'll understand that when we get into the testosterone. But you can see when I first started TRT, my estradiol was sky high at 118. It eventually got down to 51. That's when I was on 160 a week. Now it's at 65 right here. So elevated, but I'll be honest, I don't have any excessive estradiol symptoms. I'm not retaining water. I don't have sore nipples. Like, I honestly feel excellent. I think 160 milligrams of test is just right for me. Speaking of test, this is where it gets interesting. So when I was on 250 milligrams a week, you can see my testosterone was literally off the charts. I'm not in this to be a bodybuilder. I'm basically in this to find a sustainable dose of testosterone replacement therapy for me so I can optimize my performance while also not having a huge cost or stacking risk factors. So I dropped it down. So my total testosterone before the experiment was 951. Outside of the reference range, slightly, but my free testosterone was 15, almost smack dab in the middle of the reference range. When I started taking the Oxandrolone, my free testosterone doubled and my total testosterone went up by 200. So when I took this test, it was smack dab in the middle between two shots. So like almost 2 days after a previous shot. That is the same distance that I took both of these blood tests. So my total testosterone went up, my free testosterone went up, and that's because my SHBG was over cut in half. So I have a deep dive video on Oxandrolone when we're talking about some of the use cases of Oxandrolone, and one of them is that it will lower SHBG. When you have less testosterone bound to sex hormone binding globulin, then you have more free testosterone. And free testosterone is really what acts on the receptor sites and causes you to have the effects that you want from testosterone. So it'll act on your brain, your muscle fibers, blah, blah, blah. So when I said in that previous video, let's link it up here. When I said that bros in the gym say Oxandrolone makes your testosterone work better, almost positive this is what they're referring to. Namely, your SHBG goes down, so your free testosterone goes up, and again, free testosterone is what actually acts on the tissue. So my total testosterone went up, and estradiol is a reflection of testosterone via aromatase, so it makes sense why my estradiol would go up a little bit too. PSA actually went down a little bit, and my CBC, honestly, not much changed. I think I was probably just a little more hydrated in the second test because my hematocrit is now within range. White blood cell count a little bit low, but it didn't drop tremendously. It went from 3.8 to 3.5. And other than that, pretty unremarkable changes in my CBC. So now that we understand kind of what went on with Oxandrolone in terms of my blood work, let's talk a little bit about what I would have done differently. The first thing I would have done differently, honestly, is I would have made sure that I was consistently taking it an hour to 2 hours before lifting. I noticed that it has, yes, a cumulative effect. You can see that from my physique, but it also has almost like an immediate effect. It's not a pre-workout like you would take caffeine or something like that and go and crush it and you're sweating a lot. It's more like you have additional energy from it and you get crazy pumps from it. So sometimes, like, I'm busy, guys. I have multiple businesses, a family, real estate. It was tough for me to be consistent when I do anything. Now I do everything that I need to do every single day, but the timing is often not ideal. So sometimes I would take it right before I'd lift. I'd take it in the morning. And if I had the opportunity to go into the gym and lift in the morning, it'd be an insane pump. Sometimes I wouldn't lift till later in the day, and as a result, I would still have a great pump. There's no question. It does work cumulatively, but it wouldn't be quite as intense. So if I were to do this again, I would take it closer in proximity to my actual lifts. The second thing I would have done, honestly, I would have taken a lot less. 25 milligrams, I know in bro lore, that's considered like a low dose of Oxandrolone. But when I talk to guys that actually own clinics, like I own Steel Health and Hormone Center, and it's a relatively small world. You end up making friends with people, you meet them at different like conferences, and you end up talking back and forth, kind of exchanging ideas. There are people that will use Oxandrolone in a TRT context. That sounds nuts, but how they'll do it is, for instance, let's say some guy has normal testosterone on X amount a week, 150 milligrams a week, his testosterone is 1,000, but his free testosterone barely budged. They'll use a very low dose of Oxandrolone. So I'm thinking of one guy specifically who will do, I think it's 5 milligrams 3 times per week, and he doesn't see the same issues that I had in terms of my HDL basically being like cut in half. Okay, so I would have probably done a much lower dose. 25 milligrams was probably too much, and that's why it reflected in poorer blood work. Lastly, I would have done something to mitigate the potential issues with my cholesterol, specifically my HDL. So there are supplements out there that some dudes swear by that can help with HDL, like citrus bergamot, fish oil. I would have done a lot of research and figured out, okay, exactly what can I do to bulwark against a potential drop in HDL. But other than that, I think it was a great experiment, and yeah, I definitely learned a lot from it. Specifically, you don't need as much as you think, and make sure you're doing relatively aggressive lipid management when you're taking these medications. All right, guys, I hope you learned something. Do me a favor, if you did, like the video. If you're interested in content like this, don't subscribe quite yet. Go on my channel, watch a few videos, see if you like my content, then subscribe. I'm not gonna try to close you on the first date. Look, if you are interested in the white glove approach to testosterone replacement therapy, go on my website, Steele Health and Hormone Center, center spelled RE.com. Fill out a contact form. My onboarding manager will be in contact with you within 24 hours. Again, guys, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.